Gemini, a strange sign will appear to you this week, and it has a powerful meaning. Something unusual is trying to find you this week. It may not be loud or obvious, but its energy is unmistakable. A strange sign, one that speaks directly to your spirit, will begin to reveal itself in subtle, repeating patterns. You won't see it with your eyes first, but with your intuition. This isn't coincidence. It isn't your imagination. It's something the universe has been waiting for the right moment to say, and that moment is now. This message reaches you because your energy is shifting. The noise around you may still be loud, but beneath it, something softer and wiser is asking for your attention. If you've been feeling like something is trying to speak to you without words, this video will help you listen. You're being guided not just toward answers, but toward alignment with a truth you may have been avoiding. You're not here by accident, Gemini. Your presence here is part of the sign itself. If this message resonates, I invite you to gently like this video, share it with someone who may need the reminder, and subscribe to our community here at Esoteric Wisdom. Every week, we explore the deeper messages the universe is whispering to you, and together, we learn how to translate those whispers into transformation. Ready? Let's uncover what this strange sign really means. Gate 1. When the universe speaks in symbols, Gemini is awakening to the invisible pattern. Gemini, this week something seemingly strange will begin to follow you, and not in a way that ordinary things follow. This will not be a person watching from afar, or a situation that clings to you with obvious weight. No, what's coming will be quieter, more subtle, and infinitely more intelligent. It will appear in the background of your life, like an echo that only your inner ear can truly catch. A phrase you overhear again and again. A symbol that pops up on your screen, on a billboard, in a conversation. A feeling that rises without explanation, and yet somehow repeats itself in patterns only you can trace. This is how the universe speaks to someone like you, someone whose mind is always in motion, but whose soul longs for stillness that reveals deeper meaning. What you are about to witness is not random, and more importantly, it is not external first, it is internal. The sign that begins to appear is not merely out there waiting for you to notice. It is born from within, from your own soul's readiness to receive a message it has been avoiding for a long time. And so, life begins to mirror that readiness back to you. It comes not to confuse you, but to awaken you, not to haunt you with riddles, but to gently, then more insistently, show you something crucial about who you are becoming. At first, you may brush it off. You may notice the word that keeps coming up in totally different conversations, perhaps departure, or mirror, or choice, and chalk it up to coincidence. But then you see it again, perhaps written on a book cover at the cafe you weren't planning to stop at. You hear it again in a podcast you didn't intend to play. Or perhaps the sensation is more abstract, a recurring mood, a color that feels emotionally charged, a specific type of dream that repeats across nights. These are not just quirks of a clever universe. They are intentional breadcrumbs left along your path, and your soul knows this. Even if your mind tries to rationalize, your body will sense the pull. It will whisper, "This means something." You, Gemini, have always had a relationship with information. You love to collect it, connect it, translate it into meaning. But this time, what's coming your way cannot be decoded with intellect alone. It requires emotional courage. The kind of presence that listens not only with ears, but with skin, with breath, with heart. This is not a moment to think your way through. It's a moment to feel your way into. Because the sign that is appearing for you this week is not just a message. It is a mirror. It is reflecting something you have not yet been ready to fully admit to yourself. Perhaps a truth you've quietly known but avoided. Perhaps a calling that scares you because of how much it would change everything. Perhaps a part of yourself you've long silenced. Your creative self, your spiritual self, your vulnerable self, that is now knocking louder than ever to be let back in. Why now? Because something inside you has shifted. Even if you haven't spoken aloud, a prayer left your body recently. A quiet wish, a desperate clarity. Something inside you whispered, "I can't keep living like this," or "I want to feel real again," or "I'm ready now, even if I'm scared." That whisper was a permission slip, and the universe responded. not with fanfare or lightning bolts, but with symbols, with synchronicities, with that strange but persistent feeling that something meaningful is trying to break through. It's important to understand that this process will intensify the longer you resist it, not out of punishment, but because the stakes are rising. You are entering a turning point in your inner evolution, Gemini, where ignoring yourself is no longer an option. You become too aware, too awake, too close to your truth to go back to the old ways of sleepwalking through decisions, compromising your voice, or shaping your life around other people's expectations. That version of you may still be functional, but it is no longer alive. And so, the universe sends you the sign, not to scare you, but to stir you, to remind you that life is not asking for your perfection. It is asking for your participation, your full, embodied, vulnerable presence in the unfolding of your next chapter. As you move through the days ahead, don't just look for signs. Feel for them. Pay attention to what sticks in your memory. What colors seem to follow you? What themes emerge in conversations, in thoughts, in the songs you can't stop humming? The more attuned you are, the more these messages will speak directly to your soul. And as they do, you will feel a shift, not only in what you're noticing, but in how you understand yourself. You will begin to realize that the world has always been speaking to you this way, that these signs didn't suddenly appear. They've been whispering all along. You were just too distracted, too externally focused, too busy curating your life from the outside in, but now you're reversing the flow. You're learning to live from the inside out, and that changes everything. There's one more thing to know, Gemini. This sign will not wait forever. It's here now because your soul is ready. But if you ignore it, if you rationalize it away, if you decide it's too inconvenient or too scary to explore, then the opportunity may dim. Not because the universe stops loving you, but because you are choosing to delay your own becoming. The pain of that delay will not be dramatic, but it will be persistent. You will feel it in your restlessness, in your low-level dissatisfaction, in that aching sense that something essential is missing from even your best moments. You deserve more than that. You deserve to live a life shaped not by habit, but by meaning, not by reaction, but by revelation. And this strange sign is your first invitation into that kind of life. In Gate 2, we will dive into the emotional and spiritual reason why this sign is appearing for Gemini now, what it wants to awaken within you, and how to begin interpreting it not as a riddle to solve, but as a roadmap home to your deeper self. But for now, Gemini, pay attention. Something is calling, and this time it's not random. It's you reaching forward from your own future, asking to be remembered. Gate 2, the message behind the mystery. Why this sign is appearing to Gemini now. Gemini, now that you've begun to notice the presence of this strange, persistent sign, the real question arises. Why now? Why is this happening at this specific moment in your life? What is the universe trying to awaken in you that cannot wait any longer? To understand this, you must first recognize something fundamental. Your life has entered a period where alignment matters more than momentum. For so long, you define your value by how much you do, how quickly you adapt, how effortlessly you can move from one idea, one role, one identity to the next. But the very nature of the sign is slowing you down. It is not something you can outrun. It follows you quietly and patiently, asking not for action but for attention. Because the universe doesn't want you to do something. It wants you to see something. And more than that, it wants you to feel something that you've been avoiding, perhaps for months, maybe even for years. This sign, Gemini, is here because something in your soul is ready to reawaken. It could be a calling you silenced because it felt inconvenient, a truth about yourself you buried beneath roles and responsibilities, a dream you once held close but talked yourself out of because it wasn't practical. Whatever it is, it has not died. It has only been waiting for the moment you will be strong enough to carry it. That moment is now. Think of it like this. The sign you keep seeing isn't random. It's personal. It's encoded with a frequency that only you are meant to decipher. Others may witness the same symbol, a feather on the ground, a repeated phrase, a number sequence, a melody, but they won't feel the inner vibration you feel when it appears. That's how you know it's yours. It resonates not in your mind, but in your heart, in your gut, in that quiet place within that knows long before the intellect catches up. And that resonance isn't just confirmation, it's activation. When the sign repeats, it's like the universe knocking on the door of a memory you don't know you still carry. A deeper self that you haven't fully met. The version of you that's not just intelligent or charming or adaptable, but whole. Why now? Because you're finally ready to stop performing for love and start receiving it. Not just from others, but from life itself. You've spent so long becoming everything to everyone else, changing shapes, adjusting tone, anticipating needs, that you've forgotten the vibration of your own inner voice when no one is watching. The sign that's appearing to you now is a universe handing you a mirror, and not just any mirror, a sacred one, the kind that reflects not who you are in others' eyes, but who you were always meant to be before the world taught you to edit yourself. There's a second reason this sign is coming now, and it has to do with timing. Astrologically, Gemini is passing through a period where Mercury, your planetary ruler, is forming subtle but powerful alignments with Neptune, Uranus, and the Moon. These are not loud transits, but they are deeply revealing. They amplify intuition, synchronicity, and emotional sensitivity. They unlock layers of perception that your logical mind cannot access on its own. In simpler terms, you are more receptive right now than you've been in a long time. You are capable of hearing messages that would have bounced off your busy mind in any other season. So the universe waits until your heart is open enough to receive, until your restlessness begins to whisper, there must be more than this, until your dreams begin to carry hints of what your waking life has been missing. Then the sign appears, not as a punishment, but as a promise, a quiet announcement that your soul's timeline is ready to move forward, not later, now. And what is it moving toward? Not just change, not just healing, but integration. Gemini, this is your season to stop splitting yourself between who you are and who you think you should be. The sign that appearing is an invitation to become one whole self, messy, emotional, honest, and radiant. Not always polished, not always in control, but real. Let me ask you gently, what have you been hiding from your own awareness? What part of your truth have you convinced yourself is too complicated, too inconvenient, too emotional, too much? This sign is here because the version of you that lives without that truth is no longer sustainable. Something must shift, and deep down you know it. Here's what's extraordinary, though. The sign that's haunting you doesn't just point to the problem. It points to the solution. Every time it appears, it will carry a subtle instruction, a choice, a moment of clarity. Maybe you'll feel the urge to reach out to someone you've lost touch with. Maybe you'll finally admit what's no longer working. Maybe you'll be drawn to write something, sing something, leave something, start something. And the moment you act in harmony with the sign, even in the smallest way, you'll feel a click, like something in the universe just said, yes, that's it, keep going. You don't need to understand everything at once. You just need to respond. To say, I see you. To say, I'm listening now. To say, I'm ready. And you are. In Gate 3, we will explore how Gemini's most underused spiritual gift, your intuitive intelligence, will become the key to fully understanding the symbol that's chasing you this week. You won't just notice the signs, you'll start translating them. And through that, you'll begin rebuilding your life from a place of synchronicity, alignment, and sacred attention. But for now, take a breath. The universe is speaking. The message is love. The messenger is you. Gate 3. The translator within. Gemini's gift of decoding the language of the universe. Gemini, up until now, you've been observing the signs. Perhaps curiously, perhaps skeptically, perhaps with a quiet hope that they really do mean something. And they do. But to truly receive the message, you must go beyond simply noticing. You must translate, and the tool for this translation is not found in books or charts or even logic. It's inside you. It is your intuitive intelligence, your ability to sense meaning beyond what is spoken, to recognize patterns even when they appear chaotic, to hear music in the silence. This is not the Gemini that people often talk about, the clever mind, the witty voice, the endlessly curious soul. No, this is a deeper Gemini. A quieter one, the version of you that has always known things before others said them. The version that gets chills for no reason, that senses someone's mood before they speak, that feels called to places or people without a rational explanation. This is the you that the universe is speaking to now. The strange sign that has appeared, perhaps through a word, an animal, a recurring dream, a repeated encounter, is not just a message to you. It's an invitation from you, from your soul, asking you to stop looking for answers outside and instead start trusting your interpretation, because only you can decode the symbol's meaning in your life. Only you can feel what it's trying to shift, and the more you trust your inner translator, the clearer everything becomes. Here's something you may have forgotten, Gemini. Your intuition is not random. It is precise, but it doesn't speak the language of logic. It speaks through symbols, metaphors, energies. And for much of your life, you've been trained to doubt that voice. You've been told to explain everything, to make it rational, to dismiss what can't be proven. But now, your intuitive knowing is demanding to be honored. Not someday, this week. What does that look like in practice? It means that when a certain sign appears and you feel something rise in you, a memory, a word, a sensation, you stop brushing it off. You lean in. You say, "What you try to tell me?" And then you listen, not for a voice from the sky, but for the next thing your body does. Maybe your shoulders relax. Maybe tears form. Maybe you suddenly remember someone you haven't thought about in years. That's the response. That's the decoding. That's the universe and your soul having a conversation. Finally, fully, you are not here to follow someone else's interpretation of the signs. You are here to remember your own symbolic language. Every Gemini has one. Yours may be visual, colors, lights, patterns. Or it may be auditory, a certain name, a chord progression, a lyric that always follows moments of clarity. It could be a physical sensation, like a tightness in your chest that always precedes transformation. These are not just reactions. They are your personal oracle system, and you're being called to wake it up. But here's where it gets even more sacred. As you begin translating the signs for yourself, you will realize that your gift doesn't stop there. Gemini, you are not only meant to receive messages from the universe, you are meant to be a translator for others. You are one of the few signs that can speak both the language of logic and the language of energy, that can bridge head and heart, that can explain the unexplainable in a way that others understand. That is your medicine. And right now, the universe is preparing you to step into that role more fully. That's why the sign feels so personal. That's why it keeps chasing you. Because your transformation is not just for you. It's for the people who will find healing when you share what you've discovered. It's for the friend who's confused and needs your clarity. The stranger who feels seen when you describe something they've never had words for. The partner who opens up because you finally open first. You've always known how to explain things, but now you're learning how to illuminate, how to bring meaning where there was confusion, how to bring depth where there was only data. This is your evolution, and it begins with trusting what you feel more than what you can explain. So let's return to the sign that's been following you. If it has shown up multiple times, it's not because the universe is doubting your intelligence. It's because it's building your confidence. Each repetition is not just a message. It's training. It's saying, see, you did notice. You did understand. Keep going. And you must keep going. Because the longer you honor the sign, the more fluent you become in the universe's language, the more confident you become in your ability to respond with grace and purpose, the more connected you feel to your intuition, not as a vague idea, but as a living, breathing guide inside you. One day, very soon, you'll notice something. You're no longer waiting for signs. You are the sign. Your presence becomes a message. Your voice carries alignment. Your choices create harmony. People begin to tell you, when I'm around you, things make sense. Or, you always say exactly what I didn't know I needed to hear. And that's because you are no longer translating from outside in. You are living from inside out. This is the power of Gate 3. Not just to recognize a mystery, but to live it. Not just to observe the signs, but to become one. And so the question now is not whether the sign is real. It is, what are you going to do with what it's showing you? In Gate 4, we'll walk into that answer. We'll explore how this week's signs are not random moments, but divine instructions for how to shift your external life, your choices, your relationships, your priorities, so that they match the new inner alignment you are claiming now. Because seeing the sign is a first step. Living by it is the transformation. Gate 4, the alignment shift. Turning signs into real-world transformation. Gemini, now that you have recognized a sign and allowed your intuitive translator to come alive, the question naturally becomes, what now? How do you take this invisible thread that has been weaving through your week, this pattern of strange repetitions, subtle synchronicities, undeniable nudges, and turn it into something real? How do you translate insight into action, spiritual clarity into practical change? This is the moment where most people hesitate, the moment where awareness asks to become embodiment. And for someone like you, so naturally gifted at mental agility, this part can feel vulnerable because it no longer happens in your thoughts. It happens in your choices, in your yes and your no's, in your time, your energy, your boundaries, your voice. And here's the truth. This sign has not come to simply make you feel inspired. It has come to redirect your life. Think about it. The signs you received this week are not arbitrary. They've likely shown up during moments of subtle discomfort or decision. Perhaps right before you were about to say yes to something that didn't feel aligned. A strange signal flashed through your day. Perhaps right after a conversation left you feeling emotionally off balance. The universe placed another symbol in your path. These signs are not interruptions. They are course corrections. They're the divine saying, you are too aligned now to keep choosing misalignment. Pay attention. Adjust. And that's what this gate is all about. Now that you've begun interpreting the message, you are being asked to live as if it were true. This means confronting parts of your life that are no longer compatible with who you're becoming. Maybe it's a role you've outgrown, but keep performing. Maybe it's a friendship that feels increasingly shallow. Maybe it's a work routine that exhausts you in ways you've normalized. Or maybe it's a voice inside you that keeps saying, not yet, don't change. It's too much. Gemini, let me tell you this with compassion. The longer you ignore the alignment your soul is calling for, the more painful it becomes to stay where you are. You are not being haunted by signs to scare you. You are being summoned by life itself to stop settling, to stop dimming, to stop hiding behind indecision. The version of you who receives signs but doesn't act on them is dissolving. The new version, braver, clearer, more authentic, is emerging. So what does that look like practically? It means you pause before automatic responses. You say no where you used to nod along. You ask deeper questions in relationships that have been skating on the surface. You change your schedule, your priorities, your language. You stop giving energy to people who only want the entertaining version of you and start investing in connections that allow your depth to exist. It's in these small but radical choices that the sign fulfills its purpose. The universe doesn't just want you to notice it. It wants to see what you do after you notice. Do you trust what you know now? Or do you return to the familiar simply because it's comfortable? This is the weak Gemini, where your actions must align with your inner wisdom. Maybe you've seen the number 222 repeatedly, a call for balance and decision. Then make one. Maybe you've seen birds in pairs. Over and over, a reflection of partnership and truth. Then speak the truth in yours. Maybe you've heard the phrase, let go in random places, on a song, in a dream, in someone's text. Then ask yourself, what do I need to release? Today, not someday? Because when you act in harmony with the sign, even in the smallest way, you will notice an immediate shift. Peace will replace confusion. Flow will replace resistance. You won't have to force anything. You'll feel lighter not because the world changed, but because you change how you relate to it. Your soul loves alignment. It will reward you instantly when you return to it. And there's something else I want you to know. When you start aligning your actions with what your spirit already knows, you'll notice other things fall away. The opportunities that once thrilled you may lose their shine. The people you once tried so hard to impress may drift from your orbit. The rhythms that once structure your days may feel like cages you've outgrown. This is not failure. This is evidence that you are becoming real. You are not shedding your identity. You are shedding the masks you wore to survive what you didn't yet understand. And now that you do understand, you're being asked to choose something better, truer, freer. And here's where Gemini's unique gift becomes your superpower. You can change, swiftly, intelligently, but this time not just to adapt, but to align. You don't need to become someone else. You only need to stop betraying the person you already are. That's the shift, from performance to presence, from reaction to intention, from interpreting the sign to becoming the message. So take the next few days seriously. Journal your impulses. Speak up when you normally hold back. Restructure your calendar, your conversations, your commitments to reflect who you remembered yourself to be. Every realignment, no matter how small, is a victory, not just for you, but for the future you're finally ready to live. In Gate 5, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore what happens when you not only change your life as a sign, but begin to live with it, not as a one-time message, but as an ongoing conversation with the divine, a new way of seeing, choosing, and becoming. You'll learn how to stay in relationship with your intuition, how to recognize signs as companions, not one-time miracles. But for now, Gemini, take action, not dramatic, reckless action, but quiet, honest steps in the direction of your truth. You've seen the sign. You've understood its meaning. Now it's time to live accordingly. And remember, the universe never sends signs to those who aren't ready to respond. You are ready, and that changes everything. Gate 5, living with the sign. Gemini's new dialogue with the universe. Gemini, you've seen the sign. You felt its presence echo in your thoughts, in your emotions, in the rhythms of your week. You've understood its meaning, not just intellectually, but intuitively, viscerally. And most importantly, you started responding to it, not by grand gestures, but by real, courageous alignment in your everyday life. Now, something even more extraordinary is about to unfold, because this sign was never meant to be a one-time event. It was meant to be a beginning, a doorway, a conversation. The strange symbol, the repeated word, the synchronicity. It wasn't a trick of fate. It was the opening line of an ongoing dialogue between you and the divine. And now, Gemini, you're being invited to continue that conversation for the rest of your life. Not in dramatic moments only, but in the smallest of decisions, the tiniest of shifts, the way you wake up in the morning, the way you say yes or no, the way you choose what stays and what goes. You see, the universe is always talking, not with sentences or speeches, but with frequency, with movement, with reflections. And now, you remember how to listen. Now, you remembered how to feel when something carries sacred meaning. This is not about becoming superstitious or obsessive. It's not about reading too much into every little thing. It's about living in a state of gentle receptivity, a quiet openness that allows life to reveal itself in layers, in rhythm, in symbolism. It's about trusting that your soul is always being guided and learning how to stay close to that guidance even when nothing makes sense on the surface. So, how do you live with the sign, Gemini? You start by honoring the part of you that recognized in the first place, your intuitive intelligence. You continue to listen to your body's yes and no. You journal the images, the patterns, the nudges. You pay attention not only to what's happening around you, but to what's rising within you in response. This is how you train yourself to live from the inside out, not constantly reacting to the world, but co-creating with it. You also begin to live symbolically. You walk through your day with an awareness that everything is connected, that no interaction is meaningless, that even the most mundane moment could be echoing something much deeper. A delay in traffic could be the universe slowing you down for a reason. A lost object could be guiding you to look somewhere you wouldn't have. A stranger's comment could carry the sentence your spirit needed to hear. When you live like this, Gemini, you stop feeling alone. You stop feeling unsupported. You begin to understand that the world around you is not chaotic. It is responsive. That energy is reciprocal. That life listens when you speak honestly and answers when you move in alignment. This doesn't mean life will always feel easy or clear, but it does mean that you will never again feel lost in the same way. Because once you've seen the world through the symbolic lens, once you experience your own capacity to connect that no one else sees, you'll never forget that you are part of something larger, You'll never again believe that you're floating without direction, because now you know how to ask. Now you know how to listen. Here's something even deeper. When you begin living in relationship with a sign, any sign, you're not just receiving information. You're becoming information. Your life becomes a signal. Your energy begins to broadcast clarity, alignment, truth. People around you begin to feel something shift, even if they don't understand why. They may ask for your advice more often. They may feel soothed in your presence. They may tell you, you always say the right thing at the right time. That's not luck. That's you becoming a vessel for conscious presence. That's the result of a life lived in continual resonance with the sacred. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more you live like this, the fewer signs you need, because eventually you are the sign. Your presence speaks for itself. Your alignment becomes your compass. Your authenticity becomes the most powerful guidance system you'll ever have. So yes, Gemini, the sign that appeared to you this week was powerful. It was rare. It was divine. But it wasn't the whole story. It was the first sentence of a lifelong dialogue between your soul and the universe. And like any dialogue, it will grow. It will deepen. It will surprise you. There will be weeks when signs flood your life, when you can barely finish one message before the next appears. And there will be quieter times when the symbols fade, when silence replaces synchronicity. Do not panic. Do not chase. Know that the silence is also part of the message. Know that pauses are sacred. 2, they give you space to process, to rest, to integrate. Most importantly, continue to show up as a willing participant. Keep choosing presence over distraction. Keep choosing reflection over reaction. Keep asking questions even when you don't get instant answers. Because every time you do, you signal to the universe, I'm still listening. And the universe always responds to that kind of openness. In the final phase of this journey, the conclusion, you'll begin to reflect not just on what this experience has awakened in you, but on how you become different because of it. The revelation is no longer about the external sign, but about the internal shift that has changed your relationship to life itself. But before we go there, let me leave you with this. You were never waiting for a sign, Gemini. The sign was waiting for your attention, for your courage, for your willingness to live not just intelligently, but soulfully. And now that you've answered, everything is different. Conclusion, Gemini, you were never lost. You were always being guided. Gemini, as you stand here, at the end of a week marked by signs, shifts, and subtle awakenings, you might feel as though something in you has quietly changed. But the truth is, it hasn't just changed. It's emerged. Something ancient and essential within you has remembered its voice. And that voice has whispered, you were never lost. You were always being guided. At first, the sign may have felt strange, even unsettling. It lingered at the edges of your life, asking for attention, tugging gently at the fabric of your awareness. But as you followed it, from recognition to interpretation, from action to integration, you began to understand this sign was never outside of you. It was the echo of your own soul calling you home. And now, you are different. You are no longer waiting for permission to trust your inner knowing. You are no longer seeking external validation to honor what you feel. You have learned that the most powerful signs are not in the sky or the stars, but in your gut, your chest, your breath. And that every time you choose to follow those sacred cues, you return to a deeper version of yourself. This journey was not about solving a mystery. It was about remembering that you are the mystery, beautiful, complex, radiant, and worthy of being seen as you are. No more masks. No more splitting yourself into acceptable pieces. The Gemini who finishes this chapter is not the one who began it. You've shed a skin. You've claimed your vision. And you've begun a new dialogue with life itself. One marked not by fear, but by co-creation. So now I ask you, Gemini, what will you do with this new clarity? What will you build with this deeper trust in yourself? What signs will you leave behind for others? Because you are no longer just a seeker. You are a signal, a lighthouse, a message of alignment in human form. If this journey has resonated with you, I invite you to reflect below. What sign visited you this week? How did it change the way you see yourself? Your comment might just be the sign someone else is waiting for.